Hey guys, it's Abby with Motor City Nerds. Subscribe, comment, it really helps me out. Liking the video really helps, and it's free, guys. I don't know the last time you actually sat down in the dark and intently paid attention to Jurassic Park, and the first time I watched this taking my notes, I wasn't doing that. Last night I did with my mom, and man, this movie is good. And what I always tell people is this is the perfect template to show somebody who's really getting into film, like a younger person or even an older person. But this is a perfect movie to show, like, I don't want to call it basic because it's not, but it's like perfect storytelling with a camera. And there's just really good ways to show that in this. And for even a layman, and not saying that that's bad because everybody has to start somewhere, but Jurassic Park's always my go-to when I tell people, like, if that's what you're getting into. But we went to go see it during the 20th anniversary, me and my friend at the theater. It was just me and her in the dark with the sound, really paying attention. And like halfway through the previews, an old grandma and her, like, I don't know, 7, 8-year-old grandson came walking in. I'm telling you guys, I could recite this movie to you, and I was like, my heart was pounding. I was getting nervous. I was like, oh my God. And that scene when they're crawling through the rafters and the raptor jumps up, this kid shrieked, audibly shrieked. Now, you know damn well that grandma probably was like, oh, you've seen this a million times. I've seen it a billion times, you know? And this was 10 years ago. And it's a different experience, and definitely this is something that you could use to go, there's a very big difference in whether you've seen it a million times or once or none at all. This just shows like the theater experience and what it can do, or like actually intently paying attention in the dark with the sound, and it still will scare you, because I literally said that story to my mom, and then that scene when Ellie turns on all the power and the raptor jumps through the thing, my mom jumped a foot in the air and I laughed so hard, but she was like, oh my God.
I think we're back in business.
I'm so sorry, guys. I had to do it. I stand by this. The attack in the beginning is still horrifying. Immediately going to the lawyer, going to talk to the people looking up the amber for the dinosaur DNA, and establishing with dialogue so well, we have a $20 million lawsuit, we got to get these people here, we got to get them to endorse the park and say it's safe, yada, yada, yada. We get through that. And the fact that I could sit there last night with a 5-year-old and a 60-year-old, and I'm 30, and all of us watch it and all be riveted to it, speaks volumes. And I think if something can entertain a 90-year-old, a 60-year-old, a 40-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a kid, speaks volumes. I think that is harder to do and still have it be entertaining and great. I think that's pretty hard to do, and you got to have mad respect for that. I love it. Even that, the guy who does the scene with the amber in the beginning is so iconic, and he's only in it for 10 seconds, and he's like, Alan's not going to want to do that because he's a digger, like me. And then cutting over to them digging in the desert. The humor in this is so witty and good, and like I said, the dialogue is so good. When Ellie says, when she's like, yeah, I want a kid, but not that one, and then later on when they're talking to John Hammond in the trailer, and he says, no, kids are going to love it. And he's like, and what are these he's talking about the attractions. He's like, kids are going to love our attractions. And he goes, what are those? Like, asking about the attractions. That's what Alan is asking about. And Ellie goes, small versions of children, honey. And I'm like, that stuff hits and is so funny. Also, even though this was made in 93, not only do the dinosaurs hold up, not only does the CGI hold up, not only does all of that really hold up, the look of it still looks crisp. It still looks good. It does not look like it was made in 1993. Really liked and didn't really take into account until the watch last night was overnight, Alan and Ellie, well, more Alan, are thrown into this pseudo family, the thing that he didn't want. He didn't want kids. She did, yada, yada, yada. But overnight, with those kids, with this scenario going on, he's kind of thrown into that father role. And I really liked that, because on top of dinosaurs are back with humans, they don't know what to do. They're out of their depth. So is Alan. Trailer scene when the helicopter lands, that really happened once at the Ford plant when we were doing windshield repair. So all these trucks, we had like 60 trucks out there with no windshields, and they didn't tell us a helicopter was coming, because a lot of times, this is how much money Ford has. They have FU money. They will fly in like a box of bolts this big on a helicopter to keep the plant running, and they didn't tell us it was coming. And me and my buddy Kevin had to run inside and grab garbage bags and start covering up windshields while this helicopter landed. It was just like Jurassic Park. But I love all of that. It's the old school's going away, the new school's coming in. You can tell Alan's really not cool with that. It establishes his character. They establish these characters so well. And when we meet John Hammond, I'm like, he genuinely means well. There's no real villain in any of these humans. You know what I mean? They just have all different ideologies. But John Hammond genuinely means well, and it's sweet. But when they walk in, he's popping that champagne. Hey, we were saving that. And he's like, for today, I guarantee it. It's so good. I love that. And he's trying to schmooze them and go, oh yeah, we need your opinion, yada, yada, yada. And this, that, and the other thing. You see how he got him. He's like, we will fund your dig site for another 5 years. That's how he gets them to come. When we cut to, and this is what I'm going to say about the dialogue, everything is set up. And I've complained about this many other times and other things, but with this, when we have Nedry, the guy stealing from the company, the Embryos, and he's having his dinner with Dotson, and he says, at the very end of that conversation, if you hear him, he says, don't get cheap on me. That was Hammond's mistake. And then later on, we get the conversation of the financial issues, and Hammond and him are going at it, but prior to that, that's already established with one sentence. So we know this is a disgruntled employee. We know he's pissed off, and we know he has financial issues. Now, this is one of my favorite things, and I'm sure somebody has said it on the internet, but I remember, 13 years ago, when I wrote this paper in college before I dropped out, the teacher was even impressed. And it is, you know the scene in the helicopter when they're about to land, and Alan doesn't have the correct seatbelt. If you notice, those are two female ends of a seatbelt. Life finds a way. All of these dinosaurs are female, right? They find a way. Alan finds a way to secure himself with two female ends of the seatbelt. And little things like that matter. Again, when we get to the park the first time and the door opens up for the Jeep and we see the logo and it's pristine and it's clean and it's nice. And then at the end of the movie, we get that same exact shot, but it's covered in mud. So the lawyer brings Ian Malcolm, Jeff Goldblum's character, thinking like, oh yeah, he's willy-nilly, he's erratic and eccentric, he'll agree to this. And I don't think they really expected him to be the one going like, this is wrong. And then Hammond brings Dr. Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler. And I love that line of, I brought the scientist, you brought the rock star. But when we get that first shot of them landing and that music kicks in, oh my God, I got chills. And I still get chills. I get chills every time. When they immediately take them to see the Bronchiosaurus. Yes, that's, first and foremost, a lot of times, like with the T-Rex when a lot of times, we will, even now, people will put big CGI creatures, big robots, big whatever, in the dark and in the rain. And that makes it easier for them not to see all the flaws. The fact that they put the Bronchiosaurus is a little, it's not as good as some of the other ones, but it still looks great. It holds up. And to put that in broad daylight, that's huge. But when they pull up and they see it, and Alan sees it, you can tell, like, there's so much emotion there. And when they're really rewatch this and really watch the acting and watch David Attenborough and watch Sam Neill, and he's so taken back by just all of it. And when he says they do move in herds, I almost wanted to cry because he's like, I'm seeing this thing that I love so much alive right here, something that we never thought we would see. And it's so emotional for him, and it's so good. And then we get Hammond saying, welcome to Jurassic Park. And that is a little manipulative of him to do, but I mean, how else do you introduce it? But when he's like, oh man, but when they first, we got a T-Rex and all that, but when he says they do move in herds, like I said, it's so moving, and you can tell the emotion immediately shifts to this lawyer went from being like, and he's like, we're going to make a fortune on this place. And Ian is horrified. Sam Neill, Alan Grant doesn't know how to feel. You can tell, and it's all there in their face. It's all right there, and the acting is so good, and that's why I'm like, none of these people got even a nom? That's bull. The explaining on the ride, which I do think that Loki took from that, which was really smart, and to make it so that a kid, like I said, an adult, a teen, can all understand this DNA thing with their like makeshift ride, was so smart to do. It works. It's fun. We all remember it. And like I said, I'm sitting there with a 5-year-old, and he's completely silent through it. He's watching that. But the explanation and then going bing, bang, boom, we're there is perfect. And we see this whole time that Hammond genuinely just wants to make people happy. He genuinely just wants to make people happy. He's like, oh, we're going to have this, we're going to have this, it's going to be great, yada, yada, yada. And you can tell that they are in awe, but also like, what? But not so much yet. And then and I always thought it was rude when I was a kid that they shoved the ride open. But if you notice, it's Ian Malcolm who's like, all right, I'm 1, 2, 3, we're shoving this, and we're going. Also, why did every mom and dad have that same blue button up that Alan Grant is wearing? Moms, dads, you all had it. And I did think it was like, there's little things like the lawyer saying, are these auto autoerotica, and John Hammond doesn't even like acknowledge the fact that he's an idiot. He's just like, no, we have no animatronics here in Jurassic Park. But you can also see that he doesn't laugh at him and he doesn't put him down. I think he's just like, you're an idiot and I'm going to answer how I would answer. And that's what I said to my mom. I go, this is like a nice version of Logan Roy. This is like a titan of industry, you know? But he's so kind. Get off the ride and they go and they start talking to the scientists. That whole thing, watch the acting in that scene. Watch Ellie. Watch Sam Neill. Watch John Attenborough. Watch all of them. And I'm like, they are all so good in these scenes. Even John Hammond being at the hatching and being like, oh no, push, like so sweet and so nice. And like, it's like this is this vicious creature, you know, but he does not see it that way. And when B.D. Wong, the scientist, says, and he's explaining what they do, and he's like, we just simply deny them that. Also, just so you guys know, back in the day, everybody was called girl. And that was because, yes, when babies are formed or being formed, they're all female, unless they get the Y chromosome. Then they're a boy. And he's like, we simply deny them that. And when Ian Malcolm's like, well, how do you know? How do you know? How do you know? Like, that something's going to go wrong here. Like, what? And that line of, so what? Somebody goes out and looks up all the dinosaur skirts is hilarious. And you can tell that these scientists are like kind of looking down on them, like, oh, you don't think this is the most miraculous thing you ever saw? And Ian Malcolm's like making faces at them like, hell no, I think this is abomination. That hatching scene, think about when you watched that as a kid. Think about when you watch that now. That's movie magic. That's magic right there, of going like, watching this thing that would never be around come to life right in front of you. But then when Alan, it goes from this nice scene to Alan going, raptors? You're breeding raptors? Like, now I really think you're crazy. The T-Rex thing? Kind of wanted to see it. Raptors? No, man. No. And they set that up well with dialogue in the beginning when he's explaining what a raptor does to that kid. But yeah, if you watch, the shift changes in Alan, right there, where he's like, these are raptors? Okay, this is, no. This isn't just like you're doing some stuff. Like, at first I kind of thought this was cool, but now I'm like, this is crazy town. Even though all of these people are scientists and titans of industry, they are so relatable. And that's hard to do. And this is where we set up the beef between Ian Malcolm or like the slight beef between Ian Malcolm, Jeff Goldblum, and John Hammond, David Attenborough, and they set up their going back and forth when he's like, life finds a way. Even in that scene when the raptor's born, and after Alan says, what breed is this? You can see a slight, and this is what I mean about the acting, a slight change in David Attenborough's face, where he's like, man, this is where I might lose him. This is where I might lose his endorsement, because I know he feels a certain kind of way. He went from like smiling to like, what? And go look that scene up and see how just their facial changes are in 30 seconds. And I think right there, Hammond knows he's in trouble. He knows, like, I might not get this through. Going to the raptor paddock, when they go there, Mom loves the hunter. I love the hunter. He's great. And honestly, I feel like he doesn't get enough credit he deserves. He's on point. He steals every scene. But that imagery of that cow going up, going down in, and they're feeding them, and the way, what we hear, the sounds we hear, the brutality we hear, and then it coming up and being torn to shreds. They didn't just eat it. They destroyed this whole machine. That is showing the destruction they can do. And then when the Australian guy's explaining it, and he's like, no, they are problem solving. They are looking for weaknesses in fences. And this is what I mean about setting things up with dialogue. You establish they're extremely smart. You establish they know how to look for weaknesses. And specifically, they have been looking for ways to get out of their enclosure. So when the door thing happens later, it's not that they just are like, oh, we can open doors now. It's, no, we tried one thing, we tried another thing, and we have set up in the beginning that they specifically try to get out of wherever they are trapped of. That is how they get through the doors. That's why they figure it out, but you established that. When they are watching the mechanism come up that was holding the cow, and John Hammond is looking down at all the scientists like, how do they feel about this? And you can tell he's like, ooh, but it's so subtle in their faces that I'm like, like I said, I don't think they should have won, maybe, because it's like Schindler's List, all these other ones, but they should have been nominated. And I got a few more to name, but damn, yeah, their faces of just like, look at what these things can do, and they're not used to this world, and you can tell that Hammond is concerned. He's like, I thought this was going to go well, and now I'm thinking it might not. But that lunch scene has some of the best dialogue ever, and it's so good. When Malcolm starts saying the lack of humility before nature is staggering to me, and you can tell he's keeping it calm and collected right then and there, But then that anger starts to come out. But also remember, these are like refined scientist people, so they're not like, F you. But the way they handle, like I said, with the acting, just the anger levels and things like that, you can tell, like, he's getting pissed. And even the lawyer tries to step in and is like, oh, yeah, calm down, blah, 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 to Ian Malcolm. And he's like, who are you? You're the money-grubbing lawyer. Shove it. And Malcolm is really trying. He's like, don't you see, John? He's like, don't you see that genetic power is the greatest force that the world has ever seen? And you guys are just willy-nilly throwing it around? Like, what are you doing? And he's really trying to get through to him. And then when he starts saying, and then you packaged it, and you packaged it, and you sold it, and that's what you did. And it was like, you can see that anger is really there in him. But even John Hammond's response with like condor, that's how he sees it. He does not see this the way they do. He's like, if I would have made a flock of condors, he's like, no, these were not nano. They were chose for extinction. This wasn't deforestation. This wasn't human interaction. This was natural selection. And you dicked around with that, and you shouldn't have. When he says, you're acting like a kid who found their dad's gun. Like, that's a perfect way to say it. Like, you don't even realize the power that you have in your hands right now. And then the greatest line, what you call discovery, I call the rape of the natural world. Damn. The lawyer tries to step in. They do a really good job of making him scummy and not care about him, but not making him like evil. Like I said, none of the humans are the bad guy. But they're not bad guys. Like, John Hammond genuinely doesn't want to hurt anybody. He looks at it differently. All of these scientists, they look at it one way. The lawyer, he's the greedy asshole that we don't care dies, but he's not like middle finger to the law, you know? He's not like, but we're still like, we don't really care. And that's why we don't care about his death. But if you notice, it's because he's the only one who wasn't respecting the power of this. When Hammond tries to include Ellie and Alan into the conversation, and Ellie's like, you don't know what these things will do. Like, and she says it so kindly compared to Ian. And I love that going around the table of like, Ian's getting pissed, lawyer's being greedy, Ellie is being sweet and like kind and just trying to say like, you pick these plants because they look good. I'm telling you that they're poisonous, and these animals, we do not know how they'll act, and they might react violently if necessary, and it's not their fault. And you can tell John doesn't want to come as hard at her, but she's right. And even when he's like, Grant, please, Alan, Grant, please help me. And he's like, we don't know. We don't know. We just brought these things into the 21st century. Like, what, like, man, dude, I don't know if I can support this, but I'm on the fence type deal. And then this just shows how much John Hammond, the owner, thinks this is safe. This is fine. I'm going to bring in the main demographic. I'm going to bring in my grandkids. I love them very much. I think it's totally safe here. Having them show up was so sweet. Having Timmy dressed just like Dr. Alan Grant is awesome. Having Ellie plot on him and be like, yeah, ride with him in the car is awesome. Now, remember, and Ford, I know that you did horrid things to me and are still doing horrid things to your employees, and we need help, and the UAW is a bunch of sellouts, but you guys missed an opportunity here. Not only do you allow harassment and assault and everything else to take place at your company at Dearborn Truck Plant and cover it up, and the union covers it up, and the company covers it up, and the labor department does a whole bunch of illegal behavior outright, like, I'm not going to help you due to age, race, and gender, and openly stating those things. Those videos are on my YouTube if you'd like to see, all right there. But anyway, you guys really missed an opportunity, Ford, because I would have came out with the 30th anniversary of the Ford Explorer, because I think a lot of people just think the Jeep. No, the cars that they're in on the tour, those are 94 or 93 Explorers, and you should have done the glass top. Maybe not, and don't do the crazy paint, but you should have done like a special thing for that, because now my age is older, and we're the ones buying cars, and people would have bought that, and you had a missed opportunity there, Ford. Good job. And I think that Jeff Goldblum does such a good job, because we all know somebody like that that's not a creep, but is like just naturally a flirt. And that's hard to play. Like, that's hard to come off like you're not being a creep, you're not being a predator, you're just flirty. And we all know somebody like that. And I think Ian does it so well with Ellie, and he genuinely doesn't know that her and Alan are together. And I love that little part of him. When they go out on their tour, we cut back to, oh yeah, Samuel L. Jackson, killing it. And then we have Nedry, the guy stealing. And when him and John Hammond are going back and forth, and John Hammond says, I don't blame people for their mistakes, but I do ask that they pay for them. Great line. And then he goes, thanks, Dad. There's so many little things like that that are hilarious. They're so funny. And they're always after something really serious, and it's great, and it just works. But they get to the first paddock, don't see no dinosaurs, they're kind of upset, but the way these scientists are like they're at Disney World, they're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and they're so excited like kids, and it's so nice to see. And then we have Ian and Ellie talking, and then when they get to the T-Rex paddock, and the goat pops up, and having Alan say, this thing don't want to be fed, it wants to hunt, reminds me of my cat, who's a total murderer, total slaughterer of things. The guy around the block before he passed away liked to bird watch. I was like, way to make a killing field. That's all you did. Oh my God, the best line ever. You are, and I kept saying this. I use this a lot, like in things, but specifically in House of the Dragon. I was like, there are going to be dragons in your dragon show, right? But it's like, there are going to be dinosaurs on your dinosaur tour, right? Spare no expense. There's so many great little lines like that on top of the great ones that they're saying that are accurate. Now this scene, when they see the Triceratops, this is where I started tearing up. Because if you really are paying attention and watch that scene, when Ellie starts to tear up, when you can see how taken back Alan is, and he's like, this is my favorite when I was a kid. Like, and he's just, all the endorsement, all that's gone out the window here. And they're just appreciating this animal. And it's this thing that they love so much that they went to they expend their life on this, and then they see it in person. And that it's such an emotional scene, and it's great. Also, the code word for me and my friend to like leave a party, or I'm uncomfortable, or this dude's making me uncomfortable, just whatever was, is that West Indian lilac? And that's the plant that she thinks it's eating to get sick. That scene, if you really watch back, even the kids can tell. They're like, this is something else. This is something different. Like, these adults are so emotional about this. This goes past appreciation. And it's so good. I remember being a kid and going to Universal Studios and coming around the corner and seeing that Triceratops, and I was like, it was like magic. Do you think it's funny having the, what is it, Muldoon? Is that his name, or is that his real name? The hunter, when he's like, I told you we needed locking mechanisms on the vehicle doors. And that's the funny part too, is like, they're acting like kids at Disney World, but they're also adults, so we're gonna do what we want. We're gonna hop out this car. And I do like Samuel L. Jackson being this computer guy, but he's constantly going like, man, I don't know what you guys are effing around with here, but I know how things are supposed to run, and yeah, no. And he's like, cancel this. This storm is going to get bad. We need to get them back. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And I love his character in this. We have the nedry stealing scene, stealing the embryos, right? Okay, so, you know how Crichton did Westworld and Jurassic Park? One, what's up with him in playing God/amusement parks? There's got to be some connection there. But in my headcanon, after watching Westworld, which I don't want to talk about that right now and what they did to that. I don't. But in my headcanon, the second I saw that little reference to Game of Thrones, remember when in Westworld, and I'll put the pictures up, they have the shot of the dragon, and they're like, oh, we're selling the company, what are we going to do with them? And they're like, call the guy in Costa Rica. That's a reference to John Hammond of going, call the guy in Jurassic Park, he might want these dragons. And in my headcanon, I believe that he was stealing the embryos to give to the DELOS company, to a competitor. Who else would want a genetic code? Like, maybe not for dinosaurs, maybe for people in Westworld, maybe to get dinosaurs, I don't know, or to just figure out what they're doing. But in my headcanon, nedry stole those from INGEN and was selling them to the DELOS company. In my own personal headcanon. Unless that's established somewhere, let me know down in the comments. So now we're back in the cars. We get to the T-Rex paddock. The cars go down. This is why electric cars will never fully take over. Coming from somebody who built trucks for 10 years, they will never fully take over. I watch computers screw up all the time. I watch them say, oh, nope, that shot was good, that torque was good, and it was not. Like, and I have to repair it. And this is why things will never take over. And they all get shut down. And it's like, no, sometimes you need something to be manual. I mean, I'm not saying that electric cars aren't good. I'm not saying electric cars aren't going to be big. I'm saying I don't think they will ever fully take over the way people think they will. Because technology doesn't always work correctly. It doesn't, point blank. We get the shot of the goat. It's still standing in the rain. And I really love this. And like I said, this is what makes the characters relatable and everything like that. It's when Alan comes back from the other car and Ian Malcolm says, did you ask the kids if they were scared? And he was like, no, they're probably fine. He's like, why would I do that? And then Ian says, because kids get scared. And it's just, that's true. And I love the line from Gennaro the lawyer when he says, like, are they heavy? Then put them down. They're probably expensive. And then we get the iconic shot of the water cup. We get the iconic shot of the water cup. We get the iconic shot of the lamb or the goat leg falling. Where's the goat? And it's great. It's great. And like I said, if you're sitting there really paying attention in the dark, listening, not BSing, not on your phone, it's a genuinely like jarring scene. And that's what I mean about having great dialogue that you didn't really need, but it establishes why Timmy says this stuff. Remember when Alan is in the other car saying, turn the light off, turn the light off. Earlier, a scene back, we hear Timmy tell him how many times he's read Alan Grant's book. So we have Alan over here in a separate car going, turn off the light, turn off the light, turn off the light. And Timmy going, turn the light off, turn the light off. And I love that. And you can tell when the T-Rex first shows up, Alan is in awe of it. He is in awe of it. And he's telling Ian not to move. And then it goes for the car that the kids are in. And smashing the car up and just seeing what it can do just shows the strength of this creature, especially when they're getting pushed down into the mud. That is a great scene to show, and just how brutal and how these animals are like, what is this? What is that? I'm going to tear it up because I don't know. Lawyer runs to the bathroom. Eventually he gets jacked up along with Ian Malcolm. But at first we get Alan jumping out with the flare going, bang, bang, run. Then we have Ian, and I never minded this because I felt like Ian's fatherly part was taking over and was like, no, that's not going to work good enough. It needs to be like live bait, essentially. And when he's like, get the kids, it also makes him more relatable of like, I don't care about me, get the kids out of that car. Then we have T-Rex chomp on this lawyer, and Ian gets all jacked up from the house falling over. But even with Timmy still stuck in the car, and Alan and Lex outside of the car, and he's saying like, don't move, I can't see us if we don't move, and like holding her, and they're running around the car and everything like that is so good. And that T-Rex still to this day looks great. I don't think there had to be much acting going on, because if you shoved that model in my face, I would be scared. But it's even relatable then because they don't make him like Superman. Even when they're going down the ledge, he's like, you're choking me, like I don't know what I'm doing, I don't swing from ropes all the time. Like it's like, it really felt like they didn't make him Indiana Jones for a minute. It was, we might not make it out of this. And that's what I mean about having the funny stuff mixed in with the heavy stuff, and it just works so well. And then when the car falls and you don't know what happened to Timmy yet, and they get down, he lets Lex go, and she's like, please don't go. And you can tell that's where Alan first feels like pseudo-dad time, like pseudo-family time. And he's like, I'm not going nowhere, I promise. Stay right here. And then goes to get Timmy. I think the tree stuff, and so does my mom, is some of the funniest lines in the movie. When he's like, I love when he says, did your dad ever build you a tree house? And he's like, no. And he's like, okay, well, I don't know what else to say to this kid, and we got to get the hell out of this tree. And when it starts to fall, that is so nerve-wracking. And even when they get to the bottom, we know they're not going to die. And then I love when they say, well, we're back in the car. And then they say, well, at least we're not in the tree anymore. I love that. But to go immediately into the scene of them with the Bronchiosauruses and Lex being scared and Alan saying they're just animals. They're just animals. They're herbivores. It's like they're not monsters. The people who created them are kind of the monsters. Throwing away the raptor claw, just showing like, no, I have a newfound respect for this, and I don't like where I'm at right now. But him marveling at these Bronchiosauruses, and even Timmy and Lex for a minute, all being like, okay, you are just big animals, you know? You guys don't know any different. Now, remember that Ellie stayed back to help the Triceratops, so she's back at the compound with John, and that scene of them at the dinner table, going back and forth, this is what I mean about the acting. I'm like, damn, man. And it's so strong, and it's so good, and Laura Dern is so good when we have these two totally different ideologies. And John is going on and on about how much he loved like the flea circus and all of that, and it just hits so hard in your heart, and he cares so much. And like I said, like this guy didn't mean any harm. He really, really didn't. Even with the guy stealing, even when the locks go away, he's like, but what would he be doing? When it's like, other people would probably be like, some sneak shit, but he doesn't think that way. He genuinely just wants to bring joy to people. Same thing with him shutting the lawyer down when he's like, this isn't for the mega rich. And when he's talking about how much he loves his park in Kenya, and he loves this, and he just loves to make people happy. It's super sad. But then Ellie finally, not like at the lunch, has to put the smack down, and she's like, I was overwhelmed by the power of this place. I didn't respect it at first. You don't have control. These things you had control over, you don't have control over. This, John, cut the shit. When she said, that's the illusion. There is no control. And it just hits home, and it hits hard. Everything is set up. Everything is great. Having having him smoking cigarettes and being the only character doing that, but using it in a way to show stress. Because even the shots of it, it's like, he's not even realizing that he's past the butt. You know what I mean? Which you're not supposed to do that. And it's because he's so stressed. And then we have, when Nedry tries to get away, that is still a very scary scene. I don't know the last time, like I said, you actually sat down and watched it and really paid attention, but yeah, that's a scary scene that takes place, but we don't feel bad for him because you were stealing. Samuel L. Jackson arguing, I don't want to risk restarting the system. I don't want to risk that. And John being like, come on. Even all of that is so tense. And you don't think of that at first. You just think, oh yeah, Samuel L. Jackson's there. But it's like, no, those are some really tense scenes. And like I said, Samuel L. Jackson has no skin in the game when it comes to the dinosaur part. He's just a computer guy. And he's like, I am telling you, this is some craziness you guys are doing. And this might not work. And it might not be safe. It might be less safe than it is now. Now, did you guys ever hold on to your butts as your butt? Or butts as in cigarettes? Because I was saying that to my mom. I feel like that was for kids and adults to laugh. To go like, a kid's thinking a butt, like on your body. And an adult is thinking a butt, like a cigarette butt. And I don't, what do you think? But once again, earlier in the movie, we hear Nedry say, we could run this with minimal staff, with minimal stuff, and be safe for this amount of time, yada, yada, yada. So it's like, okay, so that's not a plot hole of going just like Samuel L. Jackson can keep this running if he's good enough for at least the basics. Hearing the kids complain like kids to Alan Grant walking through the park is hilarious. then again, like I said, every time Alan gets to see like the T-Rex attacking the Gallimimus, he's in such awe and respect of it, but also like, oh my God, I cannot believe we're here. This is so bad. And seeing that acting is so good. And that's why I'm like, he wasn't even nominated. That's trash. And then he finds the eggs and he's like, life finds a way. We have Ian and Muldoon going out together, finding Ian Malcolm in the rubble. And then even when those lines are said of like, I think this is Gennaro. And then she says, I think this is too. It's like, it's showing how brutal these animals can get. And it ain't nothing to them. Running to the shed to turn on, first they get Ian Malcolm, then they get him back to the compound, then they decide to do the reset of the power. Ellie and Muldoon go to do that. We get the clever girl scene. And I think the best part of that is he forgot his own thing where he's like, no, they'll do this, this, and this, yada, yada, yada. And he's like, oh, I got it in my sights. And then and I almost feel like because he's a hunter, he has so much respect for, like, even his own death. Because he's like, clever girl, like, you got me, and I knew, and I should have known better. And even though we know these animals supposedly, we don't. And goddamn, that thing is scary coming out of the bushes. And going back and forth between Ellie turning on the power and the fence scene, the dad joke is great. And I love the line of Lex, the sister, saying, when he's like, well, what do I get? And she's like, my respect. It's like, that's a total sibling thing, and I loved it. So we have Timmy getting electrocuted. We have the power back on. Samuel L. Jackson gets offed. My mom jumped a foot in the air. That was hilarious. But that's when we have the Jell-O scene. Now the kids are back in the compound. They're eating. The Jell-O shaking. Her seeing the raptors. Them running. And then we have Ellie and Alan reuniting. They're talking about everything going on. And she's like, we should be good. Unless they can open doors. Now, like I said, it's not that they just figured out how to open doors. It's that they've been testing different ways to get out, and testing different ways to get through things already, and that was already established. So when the kids run to the kitchen and they realize, oh shit, they can get in, that's also why they are like, we got to get these doors locked, because it just happened to us in the kitchen. Later on when they do that, it's because not only is one of them about to get in, we have all these guns here, we might be able to fight it off, but no, we saw them able to get through, and we got to fix this now. So it's not that they figure out how to open doors, it's that they are smart. That kitchen scene, there's a couple times where they look a little wonky with the CGI, but damn, that is still a scary scene. Even running into the freezer, scary. They're scary scenes. But I love having Ellie saying the door thing while and then the next scene is the door opening in the kitchen. Eventually the kids get to them and figure out the code system or whatever, which is still a great scene, no matter how you feel about it. It's a great scene. And they established that early on, where Timmy's picking on her for being a computer nerd. Okay, nerd, okay, computer nerd. That's how you set something up with just sentences or words, even if you're not going to come back to them, but they're there in case you do. But them getting the doors locked, them getting the phones turned back on, and then Alan calling and going, John, call the GD mainland and tell them to send the goddamn helicopter. And that's great. But it's even more sinister and scary when John Hammond can only hear the gunfire over the phone. And he starts to scream, and he's afraid for his grandkids. And they go up into the rafters, because they got to get away. Because, when Ellie yells, they're coming in through the glass, it's, oh my God, it's like blood curdling. The raptors get in, they're in the rafters. This is where that kid had that freak out moment in the theater, and it was great. But one thing I really loved is when Alan finally got to kick one in the face. I really love that scene. I loved it as a kid. I love it now when he's just that's the only time we get something like that, is when he kicks one in the face, when it pops up and knocks Lex up onto the top of it. That's so cool. Now this is where I'm saying this is impressive. This is impressive to do today. So it's times a billion more impressive to do back then. And that is that this ending is in broad effing daylight. And you have these CGI things that have never been done before on screen, and they still look great. On through the raptors are jumping up trying to get them. They're trying to get through, and then them all swinging on the bones of these creatures is saying something, And there's something real big that I didn't notice ever before until this watch through. But we get them they're all on different parts of the bones. They're all swinging around. The raptors are coming, yada, yada, yada. And it's an awesome scene. And what I think is really cool about Jurassic Park is that the humans don't save themselves. The dinosaurs being predators do. They're like, no, we run this shit now. And that's why when the banner falls and says, when dinosaurs ruled the earth, it's like, you didn't save yourselves. And it's not like the T-Rex was like, I'm saving you. It's like, no, this is just what I do as an animal. But the raptors closing in on them, Alan still being the pseudo-dad and Ellie still being the pseudo-mom and blocking the kids, doing what they can, knowing we cannot do anything against this. And then that T-Rex coming in, god damn, it is so cool. And when he does the throw into the bones, that is so, oh my God, it's my favorite part. But to put that in broad daylight, that, oh my God, you don't see that now. That's why when we see Godzilla, that's why when we see kaijus, that's why when we see that stuff, a lot of times it is in the dark, in the rain, because even with the T-Rex earlier, it covers things up. But we did have a storm coming in Jurassic Park, and that's established. But a lot of times, that's what they use to cover things up in case it looks a little wonky. No, this is broad daylight, going down, and it still looks fantastic. So T-Rex comes in, he jacks up the raptors, it's awesome. Alan and them are like, nope, run out the door, and that's what I mean. It's not the humans saving the humans, it's this ecosystem of animals that allow them to get away. And the line of, I've decided not to endorse your park is great, and John Hammond saying, me too, and like we're all in agreement now, and just like, thank you. And the way John Attenborough looks at him and is like, thank you for saving my kids. And he even says that earlier in the movie, he's like, if there's anybody I'd want to be stuck in Jurassic Park with to get through, it'd be Alan Grant. But I mean, in the beginning, we have them pull up in the same exact spot with the same exact shot with a totally clean, pristine door with the logo. Same thing happens, and it's dirty now because we went through all this shit. But when we have that T-Rex roaring while that banner falls, oh my God. Oh my God, it's great. But one thing I've never realized is that this living now T-Rex obliterated the skeleton of a T-Rex, saying like, no, I'm here, and we're here to stay. We're back. Like, that's a done thing. That's a wrap. We're not just bones no more. When dinosaurs ruled the earth. And I loved that. And like I said, it adds into him showing up, or her showing up, whatever the T-Rex is, allowed the humans to get away. It wasn't the humans. Love it. Loved all of that. Even before they get to the helicopter. And John Hammond is just looking back in such sadness. And and Alan Grant is like, puts his arm around him because he's like, no, I think this is absolutely amazing too, but we know it's not right. And John even tries arguing it with Ellie earlier. He's like, but we can do this and we can make it safer and we can do this. And she's like, no, we cannot. Seeing him look with such sadness. But like I said, it all comes from wanting to make people happy, wanting to make kids happy, wanting to bring something good to the world. And that's heartbreaking on its own, but he realizes, no, I can't do this. Alan Grant bringing up the birds in the beginning, bringing up birds throughout it, and then when they're flying off, seeing those pelicans with those kids in his arms, it's so great and it's so perfect. And like I said, there's not one thing in this movie that does not come back around. There's not one thing that is not addressed. The dialogue is great. It's amazing. It's perfect. And so I don't understand how this did not get any noms with acting and stuff. That's bull. Like I said, I'm sure we've all seen Jurassic Park, whatever. There's just a few little things that I like talking about, like the seatbelt thing and all that stuff. It's great, but but when I complain about things just not having a sentence of dialogue or not having two words like that could clear something up, this is exactly what I mean. This is a perfect template for that. You know what I mean? This is a perfect template for that. Line of dialogue. Line of dialogue. You might not come back to it, you might, but it's perfect. It really is. The score, everything, it's perfect. I think all it won was visual effects and sound design or something, because John Williams won, but for Schindler's List. But yeah, no, we all know we love Jurassic Park. It's the 30th anniversary. I can't believe that it still holds up. Not only the dinosaurs, but the look altogether. And this is, like I said, if you are getting into film, this is a perfect introduction to this is how you do it. This is how you have dialogue. This is how you bring things back around. This is how you do this. It's great. And I highly suggest sitting down in the dark with no phone, no nothing, and really paying attention to this with the sound up, and tell me that the theater experience doesn't matter. Tell me that doesn't make a difference. Tell me that, because bull. But yeah, I'm Abby with Motor City Nerds. Tell me how much you love Jurassic Park. I love Jurassic Park. We all love Jurassic Park. Oh my God. And the second one isn't that bad. We might review it. The second one is not bad. It's just the first one is so good. But I was shocked when I saw this didn't get any acting noms. I was like, that's bull. But either way, tell me what you think about Jurassic Park. I'm on OnlyF. I'm on TikTok. I'm on all the stuff down below. Thank you so much. I'm still struggling a lot. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm trying to find a job again, but it is what it is. And yeah, make sure you subscribe, comment, share. It really helps me out a lot. What's your favorite dinosaur?